Before we begin, a warning. This episode includes discussion of suicide and child abuse. Some of what you'll hear may be difficult. Please take care while listening. This is They Were Here. Their name is Kit Mora. They were just 16 years old when they disappeared in 2021. Kit is non-binary, an Indigenous teen beginning to ask questions about who they are, where they come from, and how to honor that history. A student, a sibling, a best friend. Someone who loves art, music, and dinosaurs. And someone who deserved to grow up safe and loved. Instead, Kit vanished from Omak, Washington, under circumstances no one can quite explain.
I am Charlotte. I am Kit's older sister.
Charlotte remembers Kit as someone who could be both quiet and open.
Kit was always really bubbly, very reserved, the definition of an introverted extrovert. Like, once you got to know Kit, Kit was super happy, super smiley, very honest, very blunt.
Kit's best friend Amethyst first met them in kindergarten.
My name is Amethyst McCart. I am 20 years old, and my best friend was Kit Mora. So Kit was very shy and a very sensitive kid. To outsiders, they didn't really talk much. They kind of just were standoffish, honestly. But the second that you got to know them, they were loud and they were funny and outgoing. They just had a really hard time showing that to literally anybody else. But the second that outer layer wore off, they were just like this brilliant, smart, kind, funny person.
Charlotte said that Kit loved Elvis. They loved dragons, they sketched, they wrote, they dreamed.
Kit was super into the How to Train Your Dragon series. Drawing. Kit had started doing some writing, but never really wanted to share it.
Amethyst said they really loved art.
They always had a sketchbook, or they were drawing on their phone. They created entire worlds through their pictures. They wanted to be a paleontologist when they were older, and they had a very big obsession with dinosaurs, and they collected little dinosaur figurines.
The people closest to Kit hold on to the small moments, memories that capture who they were. Charlotte recalls when she was 10 and Kit was 4.
We had this yard sale at my dad's house, and I don't remember what I sold, but I sold something that I guess Kit didn't want me to sell. And Kit comes up to me just so mad, genuinely angry, and just looks at me and goes, you ruined everything. And I was like, well, what did I ruin? I was like, I don't know what I could have ruined for you. And Kit just goes, my dreams. And I was like, oh, okay.
The memories Amethyst carries are also vivid. One that stands out was when they were 11 or 12.
It was that awkward transition between elementary school and middle school, I think, that summer. We were at home and we told my grandma that we wanted to go to the park. But Kit's grandma, Bonnie, she was very protective and told Kit that she didn't want them going anywhere that wasn't accompanied by an adult.
But Kit and Amethyst wanted to go anyway, and the simple act of disobeying, of stepping outside without an adult, felt like breaking the rules of their childhood.
So we thought that we were being so rebellious by going to this park and not telling Bonnie that we didn't have my grandma with us. And it was 7 a.m, pouring rain, and we went to Sportsman's Park and just ran in circles.
It wasn't the park itself, it was the freedom. Sneaking out early in the morning, soaked in rain, laughing.
And we just enjoyed each other's company. It was something that I hadn't had or felt with anyone else. And it was the most liberating, we felt like we were being such rebels by sneaking out to this park. It's hard to describe or capture someone's personality within one instance, but I think about that day a lot.
Their lightness, their humor, and their depth defined Kit. And yet, by the time they were 16, they would vanish under circumstances no one could quite explain. For Kit, growing up meant learning how to balance who they were inside with the way the world expected them to be.
Kit was pretty quiet about it. Growing up, Kit definitely presented as feminine for a vast majority and didn't really start being more androgynous until right at the end of middle school, beginning of high school.
Even then, it wasn't something that Kit shared openly with family.
And I'd kind of always had my little suspicions. And I talked a lot about sexuality, gender identity, and stuff with Kit. But Kit never officially came out to like me or my parents. So it was kind of always just suspected. But Kit came out to their close friends and definitely got to explore that deeper with them than with family.
One of those close friends was Amethyst. She saw the weight Kit carried.
They had a lot of dysphoria, and they didn't feel as though it's nothing against Kit's grandparents. They loved their grandparents, but they just felt as though their grandparents wouldn't really understand. Especially considering Kit wasn't necessarily transitioning into being male. It's harder for older generations to kind of grasp the concept of someone being non-binary.
Kit had grown up with their great-grandparents. Kit never felt like they could fully explain what they were going through. Out of respect and out of fear of being misunderstood, they kept most of their identity private.
They used to layer and double layer their sports bras and like wrap their chests a lot. And actually, the last time that I saw Kit, it was their 16th birthday, and I had bought them their first binder. But it was a secret. They didn't want to have to explain it to their grandparents, but they just hated anything that had to do with them being feminine.
Here's a voice memo Kit sent Amethyst.
Well, I mean, it's 2020. We're Gen Z. We're pretty open unless you were raised by like very conservative Christian family sort of things, and you followed your parents' values and beliefs and stuff. But for the most part, I'm just saying that like it's about time that like people are acknowledged for who they are and just how like diverse people are in that aspect of themselves and in every other way.
Kit's search for belonging also reached towards culture.
They always gravitated towards learning towards Indigenous cultures, but they never really practiced anything. After Kit moved in with Lori, they were telling me that they were learning more and more about it and finding it more and more interesting and thinking that they identify closely with the Two-Spirit form of identity.
Kit didn't know much about their Indigenous history, but they were always researching. When they learned what being Two-Spirit meant, they embraced it, proud to know they were Indigenous. Charlotte believes that if Kit were still here, they'd be learning their customs and honoring their ancestors in every way they could. 16 is young for anyone to carry so much, but for Kit, identity was not an abstract question. It was daily, lived, and sometimes hidden. For most of their childhood, Kit lived with their great-grandparents in Yakima, Washington. But in 2020, their mom, Lori Sue Nelson, reached out. At first, Kit resisted. Then, after the death of an older brother who died by suicide, the pressure to reconnect grew stronger.
And Kit's mom really kind of played into that and was like, I just lost my son. Don't let me lose you completely too. I just want a relationship with you.
By summer of 2021, Kit agreed to visit Omak. They were supposed to stay for just a week.
They were on the phone with Lori, and Lori had invited them to go to Omak and meet Lori and her kids. Her logic was that I just lost one of my babies. I can't afford to not get to know you. And Kit was like, it makes me really nervous, the idea of going and meeting my mom. I had told them, I think you should do it. You've been wanting to get to know your mom, and what better of a time than now? It was like such a quick process. And at first they said they were just going to go over there for a week. And then around the end of the month, I called again and was like, hey, so when are you coming back? Like, I'd love to see you. And they said, yeah, so I think that I'm actually going to do this school year. in Omak. And I said, really? And they're like, yeah. I said, well, I'm glad that you're having such a good time, but I thought that we were going to finish school together. And they're like, well, yeah, I can come back for senior year, but I think that I'm going to do my junior year here, and I'm just having a really good time here.
From the outside, it looked like Kit was settling in, choosing to spend the school year in Omak. But inside the family, things were more complicated, with Kit caught between wanting to come home and being persuaded to stay.
Kit calls my dad and is like, hey, I want to come home. And my dad's like, okay, yeah, whatever, let's set it up. Where do I need to meet? Where am I coming to get you? And then a couple hours later, Kit's mom calls and says, well, actually, no, Kit's gonna stay. We're gonna just ride it out. We're just working through family issues and getting to know each other and stuff like that. And my dad's like, okay, well, then I guess I won't. But, if you guys need me to come get Kit, I can do that.
The back and forth went on for weeks, Kit calling to say they wanted to come home, then changing their mind. For Kit, the move brought something new. At first, it seemed like freedom.
Lori had been one of the first people that Kit had felt comfortable coming out to about their gender identity. And so they had a different way of living there than they did here in Yakima. Lori didn't want to confuse the kids, so she just introduced Kit as the kid's older brother. And they were able to be masculine and be a different version of themselves than they could here. Kit felt liberated, felt seen, and able to be who they wanted to be. And it was like a breath of fresh air for them.
But beneath that sense of recognition was another reality. Kit was taking on more responsibility than ever before. Not only were they babysitting their 4 small siblings, but they also worked at a thrift store their mom owned, the Storehouse Mercantile. They texted Amethyst.
So it was October 30th of 2021. We had been texting that day, and at some point in the conversation, I had asked them how they're doing, and they said, honestly, I'm not doing that great. And I said, why? What's going on? And they told me, well, I'm just really stressed out here. Pretty much if I'm not in school, I'm watching the kids or I'm watching the store, and I'm just exhausted. They're like chasing around 4 kids all the time or working all the time.
Amethyst offered to drive to Omak to bring Kit back herself.
Kit was like, well, no, because who's going to take care of the kids if I leave? And I'm like, who took care of the kids before you got there? I know that you probably love your little siblings, but the thing is that they're not your responsibility. And if it's to a point where you feel like you're just a live-in babysitter, then it's not fair for you to have to stay there. I understand that you want to help your mom, but you can't help your mom if you can't help yourself. And they were like, I don't know, I'll call you if I ever want to come home, but I think I'm just going to stay for now and see how things play out.
Then Kit said something odd that really worried Amethyst.
They had never done this. They asked me if I could delete that conversation. And I asked them why. And they said, well, I just don't want my mom to see it and feel bad. And I'm like, does your mom go through your phone? And they said, well, no, but I just don't want her to see it. And I was like, okay. And so we deleted the entire conversation.
It was one of the last text exchanges Amethyst would ever have with Kit. Around the same time, Charlotte noticed things didn't feel right.
But I had been having these weird gut feelings that something was off. There were posts from Kit's mom on Facebook that just didn't really look like Kit. Kit was wearing dresses, and it was just strange.
In Yakima, Kit had cringed at the idea of wearing feminine clothes. But in Omak, something seemed to shift.
Obviously, Kit's gender identity was something that they were very fragile about, but I did find it very odd that they were starting to wear more feminine things. And then after everything had unfolded and I got those messages from their friend with the screenshots from Twitter, it just made my heart sink a little bit.
Later, Amethyst would learn that Kit had been posting on Twitter, writing about arguments with Lori and her transphobia, posts Kit never shared directly with her.
Where they were talking about how their mom had started being transphobic towards them and saying stuff to their little siblings like, Kit isn't a boy because he has boobs. And don't call him your older brother, or don't call her a boy because he's a girl and he has boobs. And that was like quite literally the opposite of everything that Lori had said when Kit moved up there.
By late fall, even Kit's texts started fading.
After that point, our text messages went from every day to every other day to once a week to once a month very quickly.
And then in November, they stopped altogether.
The last time that we talked was November 5th, 2021. It actually makes me emotional. The last 3 messages that Kit sent me were, "We will be adults soon. Where did the time go? I swear middle school felt like not that long ago."
At the time, she tried to explain it away.
I just figured every friendship, every relationship has this point where they just kind of drift a little bit. So I didn't think much of it.
After that, silence. New Year's came and went, birthdays, repeated calls and texts, none of them answered. Months passed with no replies. Kit's phone stayed silent. Amethyst tried to convince herself they were just busy, that maybe their friendship was drifting. But by the fall of 2022, that explanation no longer made any sense.
Then my friend Kayla messages me and says, "Hey, have you heard from Kit?" And instantly my heart dropped, because it's one thing that Kit hasn't talked to me, but Kit hasn't talked to Kayla either. And me and Kayla were like some of Kit's best friends in Yakima, and Kayla and Kit kept really close contact.
For Amethyst, that was the breaking point. She and her grandmother decided to drive over 3 hours from Yakima to Omak to look for Kit themselves.
So we drive to Omak and we go to the store. It's completely boarded up. The store is closed. And we're so confused. Where do we even go from here? Like, what do we do now?
They stopped at neighboring businesses, hoping someone might know more.
We asked them, "Hey, what happened to the store next door? Do you know where the owner is?" And they said, "Yeah, she sold that building. I guess she couldn't keep up with it." And we were like, "Do you know Lori? Like, do you know where she lives? Do you know where she's at?" And they seemed kind of standoffish by the fact that we were asking where she lived. But they were like, "We know she still lives in town because she comes into our store every now and then, but we have no idea." Like, okay, we're back to square one.
Running out of leads, Amethyst and her grandmother tried one last idea.
So we go to the library. Grandma's thinking maybe they have some form of like directory or phone book, and hopefully Lori's in there. No luck. We go to leave the library, and as we're leaving, we see the police station right across the street. And instantly we both know we're going to have to go to the police.
Inside the station, Amethyst made her plea.
We go in and I call them, "I think my friend is dead, or maybe something seriously wrong. I just want someone to check on them and let me know that they're okay."
The police took down their information and said they would let them know what they found out.
So we go home, leave Omak, because there's nothing more we can do. It's in the police's hands now. And as we are pulling out of Omak, we get a phone call from the police, and they tell us, "Yeah, so Lori said that Kit's been missing since April." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's September."
Charlotte remembers when she heard.
Kit's mom had said that Kit had run away in April of 2022. Kit wouldn't just run away. Kit was watching their younger siblings and working at the store, last we heard, and going to school. It wasn't adding up. It wasn't making sense.
Instead of launching a full search, police labeled Kit a runaway.
Is Kit filed a missing person? And they said no, but we're going to file them as a runaway right now, because Lori says that she doesn't know where Kit went. All she knows is that Kit ran away with some woman from Yakima that they loved. And my grandma, she was like, "There's no woman from Yakima that they would have run away with that we wouldn't know about." And we start freaking out. Like, we're panicking at this point.
Charlotte was disheartened by the lack of police assistance.
Initially, it was genuinely bullshit. They didn't want to take the missing report because they spoke to Kit's mom, and Kit's mom labeled Kit as a runaway. And anyone who knows anything about anything, when it comes to law enforcement and the word runaway, the second you're labeled a runaway, they don't care.
It had been nearly a year since Kit was last seen, and still, no one in authority seemed alarmed. Court documents paint a clearer picture of life inside Lori's home. On June 17, 2022, CPS received a report that Lori was leaving her 4 young children barricaded in a bedroom upstairs, home alone. When police arrived, they found a makeshift gate tied with rope across the stairwell. The report noted soiled diapers, caked on dirt, tangled hair, and injuries, including burns and bite marks. A dependency petition by the Department of Children, Youth, and Families described numerous contusions. Evidence the children, quote, may have been choked, and that they were immediately taken to the Mid-Valley Hospital. The documents also describe Lori's long history with child welfare. 6 founded findings for neglect of abuse between 2004 and 2008. Dozens more intakes since 2015. Accusations of punching, choking, and verbal abuse. Lori has had 9 children in total. At the time of this petition, only 4 were still in her care. Her partners Kenneth Diaz and Leroy Zaccarel also appeared in the files. Diaz was found hiding in Lori's home despite a no-contact order when the children were removed. Zaccarel, the father of 2 of Lori's kids, has a long history of criminal charges, domestic violence, and child welfare involvement. This is the environment Kit entered when they moved in with their mom.
Hopefully you can find out something. Hopefully Lori responds to you. Maybe she can tell her side of this. And I feel like a big part of the reason why I have so much anger towards her is because she has never once actually told her side of things. And maybe if I knew her side of things, I would have a different version of it. Maybe I would feel differently. Maybe I would have a better understanding what's going on. But because she hasn't, I had no idea. So hopefully you can get some form of response.
When I reached out to Lori Nelson, Kit's mother, the person on the line said it was the wrong number. She didn't respond to emails, and silence has been her most consistent answer since Kit disappeared. Amethyst once reached out to Kenneth Diaz directly, hoping for answers.
At some point, someone had leaked Kenneth Diaz's and Lori Sue's phone numbers on Facebook, and I had messaged Kenneth, and his conversation, our conversation was very odd, and he kind of brushed me off, but I'll read it to you. I had asked him, what happened to Kit? Who did they run away with? And he said, she ran away with some woman who she said she loved, some woman she met online. You can choose to believe me or not, but she ran away because we told her she couldn't be with someone way older than her, and that she decided to run away with that woman. That's all I know. I have no reason to lie about this.
Amethyst pressed for more details.
I said, thank you. Did she say a name? He said, she did, but I don't remember it. I'm sorry. I said, how come Lori never made a police report? We could have made sure they were okay. What if something happened to them? Is there messages or maybe a note with the name? Did you know Lori was abusing her children? Was she abusing Kit? Why did Kit stop going to school? And he said, look, I'm going to be real with you. When she ran away, I wasn't living in the house, so I wouldn't know. I wasn't with Lori. She had a new man living with her and Kit. So I can't help you. I wasn't even there when she ran away. Stop bugging me. And I said, bugging you? Do you have any idea how this feels? Have you ever lost someone close to you and had no closure? I understand that you didn't live there, but if me asking questions is bugging you, then all of that does is make you suspicious. I'm going to try and friend my friend. Have a good day. And he said, I lost my mom and grandpa just recently this year, so don't sit there and tell me about losing someone close to you. I lost my mother and grandfather literally not too long ago, so yeah, fuck off. Stop messaging me. You don't know shit about heartache.
For Amethyst, his defensiveness raised more suspicions than clarity.
I thought it was very odd that he was like, I loved Kit, and then was like not bugging me, because as the people who actually care about it, I told this story 5 million times, but never once am I going to pass up another opportunity to tell this story because I care. I understand that it hurts, but if you love someone, you're going to get as many details as you can out that you know are going to help. So why is it bugging you for me to ask you what happened?
When Kit's disappearance was first reported, police treated it like a runaway case. That decision shaped everything that followed. Amethyst felt it too. What police called a runaway never matched the reality of who Kit was, and it meant the case wasn't taken seriously.
They just kind of brushed it off because people don't take runaway cases seriously, which honestly, in my opinion, is ridiculous because children are children for a reason. Just them being a runaway shouldn't be enough of an excuse to not look for them. That's crazy to me. They're kids. They're in danger.
By the time a detective was finally assigned, nearly a year had already been lost. Charlotte noticed a difference right away.
I want to say it was either December 2022 or January of 23 was when we got like an actual detective assigned on the case. And after getting him assigned, he's been great. He talks to me as often as he can. I text him anytime that, somebody gives me a tip, or if I hear something, or if, a body's found like literally anywhere in Washington that could potentially match the description. Like I give him a text message and he's like, yeah, we'll look into that right away. And he does. He looked into tips that realistically had no grounds to be looked into just because someone told me it was a possibility.
When I contacted Detective Brian Bowling of the Omak Police Department, he emailed me. Quote, as this is a very complex case and still under investigation, there's not a lot I can tell you about it at this point. My number and or email are great for any tips to the case. In August of 2024, the Omak Police Department shared a public update. They announced that the case was now being worked in partnership with the Attorney General's Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Peoples Cold Case Unit. As part of that work, the Washington State Patrol Forensic Crime Lab had executed a search warrant which displaced tenants living in the home connected to the investigation. Police said they had coordinated support for the family that had to relocate. They stressed their commitment to finding answers in Kit's case, but added that until the lab had information that could be released, they had nothing more to share with the community. Detective Bowling also emailed me, quote, I can tell you we are not waiting on any results from those searches. We have since then searched hundreds of acres of possible body dump sites with both cadaver dogs and humans with no results. I'm continuing to follow up on all tips received. Years into Kit's disappearance, the official word is still that investigators are looking, but answers remain out of reach. Today, nearly 3.5 years after Kit was reportedly last seen, the case remains open. The Omak Police Department says they continue to follow up on every tip. A $10,000 reward is now being offered for information leading to answers in the disappearance of Kit Mora. But for Kit's family and friends, the waiting is its own kind of pain.
My mom's older. She's 76 right now. And her health, like her physical health, has declined so much since this has happened. I don't know how much longer she has. My dad, same situation. He's older. He's in his 80s. My kids, they ask about Kit quite a bit. I just have to be like, you know what, baby? I don't know. I really don't know. And then he has to process, well, what does that mean? Our family is broken up over it. And I feel like sometimes it seems like there's nothing that's ever going to happen.
For Amethyst, what hurts most is the absence of Kit's voice, the everyday conversations that once came so easily between them. Even in a short voicemail, you can hear the comfort Kit felt with their best friend, the relief of being fully seen.
But yeah, I'm glad we can talk to each other about these sorts of things too. Because, and there's just really nothing to hide, and we could just talk just to fucking talk.
That's what was stolen when Kit vanished. And that's what their family and friends are still fighting to recover. Answers, truth, and the sound of Kit's voice in their lives.
Having to graduate high school without them was really hard. The new How to Train Your Dragon movie came out, and that was like our thing. I actually got a How to Train Your Dragon tattoo for them. And it's hard to grow up and grow old knowing that they're not by my side to do it. I'm in my first apartment. I'm in college. I'm experiencing all of my first getting a car and a license and having a job, and just knowing that Kit isn't here to do all of those things makes it really hard to enjoy those things because they're not here to do it too, if that makes sense.
For Charlotte, for Amethyst, for their family, the silence is unbearable, and the questions never stop.
I feel like sometimes it seems like there's nothing that's ever going to happen. Like, we're never going to get better.
This world was and is a better place because Kit was here. Everything that Kit touched, everything that Kit was around, every room that Kit walked into was lighter and better for it. And I think that if the world could be a little bit more like Kit, the world would be a better place. And it breaks my heart that they don't have everything that they want. And I want everyone to know that I had not given up hope. And Kit's family has not given up hope. And we will forever search for them, and we will forever fight for justice for them and fight for the opportunity for their voice and their story to be told. Just as I feel every missing child should have.
For those who love Kit, the fight isn't over. They continue to share Kit's name, their story, and their hope for answers. If you know anything about the disappearance of Kit Mora, please come forward. Detective Brian Bowling with the Omak Police Department is leading the investigation. You can reach him at 509-826-0383 or by email at opd406@omacpd.com. Tips can also be shared anonymously through Crime Stoppers. Kit has likely been missing since November 2021. They were just 16 years old when they vanished from Omak, Washington. Kit is 5 foot 2 inches tall, about 140 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. They're non-binary, biracial, and live with mental health needs. If you know something, you might be the key to breaking this case. Kit Mora deserves to be found. Their family deserves answers. This is They Were Here. This episode was produced by Jackie Fulton, fact-checking by Fendel Fulton, original music by Aaron Levison. Special thanks to Jen Dorman.